By 1997, Bin Laden and Al-Zawahiri had returned to Afghanistan, where they had first met 10 years before. In May 1998, Bin Laden and Zawahiri invited a group of journalists to this press conference, where they announced a new jihad. Zawahiri was convinced that it was not their theories that were to blame for the failure. It was the fault of the Muslim masses. Their minds had been corrupted by the liberal ideas from the West. But rather than give up, he believed that the solution was to attack the source of the corruption directly. The new jihad would be against America itself.
Well, 1997 was their failure. Egypt, Algeria, it worked nowhere. It went wrong because populations would not back them, because people, even people who were sympathetic to them in the beginning, were frightened away by their violence, by their incapacity to communicate and to have access to the people. And this is very clear in Zawahiri's book, Nights Under the Prophet's Banner, where he sort of goes back on this experiment and laments.
Soviet Union, all the stands in Central Asia were once part of the Soviet Union. The borders were drawn arbitrarily by Lenin and Stalin. And he saw one of the most important steps was to prevent Russia from asserting any control in the region, which we did. You know how we did it? Over the last decade, thanks to Goldman Sachs, the Harvard Endowment, the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve, the World Bank, we looted $300 billion out of the Russian economy. $300 billion. I was there. The Russian population was, what, 64 million at the fall of the Soviet Union. The population of Russia is today 145 million. In another 10 years, it will be 130 million. The average life expectancy of a male in Russia has dropped to 48 years. Thanks to the economic devastation, the ruin we visited on their economy, it was a deliberate plan to weaken Russia so that it couldn't challenge our move into Eurasia a decade later. Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and China. Now, the proposed oil route is from here to here, 1,500 miles. China can't build it because it's 5,000 miles, and they don't have the technology to build it. We do, thanks to a company named Halliburton, which was chaired with the CEO was Dick Cheney, right? Okay, they're probably going to build the pipeline. Okay, so now that you see this relationship, what he's saying is, you build a block starting with Islamic fundamentalism, which we supported and created, to keep Russia from moving south to reassert control. We have effectively made China dependent upon our technology because they need the oil desperately. Now,
the point in many ways for these guys wasn't just to topple Saddam, it was to transform the Middle East. They want to take the U.S. military and go in and shore up American interest in the key area of the world. And that's their vision. They want to spread democracy around the world on the point of our bayonets.
تتمنين العراق أن يصبح مثل أمريكا؟
والله شو أقول لك، يجوز أكو ناس ترتاح أكو ناس ما ترتاح. ما أريد مثلا يعني، أريد مثل أمريكا، مثل شوارعها، حدائقها، بنائها، هيك أريد.
إحنا من البداية واقفين ضد أمريكا، لكن أكو ناس اللي كانوا يرحبون بأمريكا هو قال صدق ديمقراطية وصدق أمريكا تحررنا.
الصراحة كيفنا كل احنا صفقنا. شو نصيح؟ عاش بوش، مات صدام. احنا جاي نصفق عاش بوش، مات صدام.
I think most Americans don't want to police the world, but I think most Americans understand that if we don't at least help police the world, then no one's going to.
Where the debate and controversy begins is how far does the United States go, and when does it go from a force for good to a force of imperialism?
So let the people have their country back again. Just think of the cleaning up of the mess after we left Vietnam. Vietnam now is a friend of ours. We trade with them. The president comes here. What we achieved in peace was unachievable in 20 years of the French and the Americans being in Vietnam. So it's time for us to take care of America first.
Senator McCain. 30 seconds.
Well, let me remind you, Congressman, we never lost a battle in Vietnam. It was American public opinion that forced us to lose that conflict. And if you... And I think it's important for all Americans to understand a fundamental difference. After we left Vietnam, they didn't want to follow us home. They wanted to build their own workers' paradise. If you read Zarqawi, if you read Bin Laden, if you read Zawahiri, read what they say. They want to follow us home. They want Iraq to be a base for Al-Qaeda to launch attacks against the United States. Their ultimate destination is not Iraq. Their ultimate destination is New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Phoenix, Arizona. This is a transcendent challenge of our time. I believe that we can meet it, and we will defeat it.
Congressman Paul, I want to...
It looks bad. It looks bad. And apparently Halliburton more than once has overcharged the federal government. That's wrong.
How would you tackle a problem like that?
I would have a public investigation of what they've done.
So,
What's that? Vice President's on the phone? Okay.
Probably have to take the call.
One thing you can do is vote with your money. Stop giving money to people who lie to you. Okay? Now, I'll give you a little word of inspiration. I'll give you, this is a comment on the Patriot Act. It says our forefathers would think it's time for a revolution. This is why they revolted in the first place. They revolted against much milder oppression. And who said it? A Republican Congressman, Ron Paul of Texas.